So let's continue with the delete. Delete user. The same principle. ID. Point to set. Component post item state. Again, users. State. Users. This time always with filter. Give it a temporary name of user. Point it with user. ID. User ID is not equal to ID. And then it will simply remove it for us. Let's do a quick check on the code. Okay. So we have the user, which is essentially a regular array of user. We have the set user that receives the information from the database and essentially all fills our users with data. Okay. We have the add user to add a new user, point to state user, take the existing state and add another user to it. Okay. Then we have the update user. Receive ID and update point to state. Refers to users state users map. Okay. We call each user in the user array and we check if we will provide one here. Is there such a user in the array by ID? If so, update their data. If not, leave them as they are. And lastly, delete user also checks by ID and essentially removes them from the state. Okay? So that's essentially the functionality of the state. We update the state. So we're done with that as well. Let's create a moment. Let's go to the main app. We know this is the main app through which we access the entire application. I want to delete everything and add everything again in a clean way. Okay, we will use React here. We will want to call the query. Okay, to the React query. There we will need the call query client and the all query client provider. Additionally, we will need the full add user components through which we will add users. We will also need the users list to see a list of the users. Okay, let's actually start by handling the whole query provider topic. We actually want to define the query provider outside the main component to avoid what is called recreating every time the application renders. Let's create a variable. We'll call it query client. It will be of type query client. Okay. We will use the app for the query provider. So for the app, we take the React function component, and here in the return, we will simply return the query provider with the client, query client. Okay, and inside we will call a new component that we will create. We'll call it app content. Okay, this component will be here. Let's call it const app content React FC for our application. Okay. Later, in the future, we will call fetch here to retrieve data. And what I want to do is create a div with a class name that uses bootstrap container. Inside, place a class name of row and bootstrap. Okay. And inside, I want to divide the page into two columns. Div with a class name of col, for example, LG4, where we will place the form. Another div with a class name of col LG, the remaining 8. There we will place the list. Let's go ahead and insert the components. We have the head user here, and we have the user list here. Well, of course, we will put all of this in the return. Excellent. Okay, let's do an initial run to see that it works. We are working with Vite, so we speed up with npm. Run dev. Let's click on the link. And right over here is the page. Okay, right now they are cramped, but it works. So let's make a small correction. First of all, let's unify the two pages. Okay, so we basically have the index.css, which is probably messing up how the page looks. So let's fix that. Now it's sorted with the user list in the middle and the head user on the side. And let's give it a general background. Okay. Let's set everything written will be in white color. Let's do this in a paragraph. Excellent. That's all. Let's start with adding a user. Okay. When adding a user, we want the React. And of course, we want useState. We can store variables in the state. We are going to refer here to both the store and the service of the requery. We will need the use mutation from requery, and we will need the create user function from the service. Services, user service, and there we wrote the create user function. Additionally, we will extend the same thing from the state. So in Chrome, in the store, use user store. There exists a function with the same name. Thank you very much. You tried. Thank you very much. There you set up the points as a challenge. Let's wrap the add user in React FC and essentially create a state variable. What we wanted to get: first name, set first name, let's start at first name, last name, email, phone, and position. Last name, email, phone. We will write email, phone, and position as listening, listening. And position. So first we will create some variable and call it add user, and essentially it refers to use user store and manage the function of user ID in the state. The second step, we want to create the functionality of the mutate. So we will manage the mutate. You can call a built-in function. There's a flag is loading, and also for error. It's found in use mutation, so we will activate the create user function from the service and add a function called onSuccess. This function will work if everything succeeds and we want to receive the data that returns. This way we can know what ID was provided to that user. We'll call the head user again, and then we can actually give them the ID according to what was returned from Firebase, and then add the first name, last name, email, phone number, and position. Okay? And of course, we can also reset the fields afterward. Okay? Use mutation, loading, and error are used with use mutation. This came to us earlier. In the create user function, we call the service create user, onSuccess, data, head user, Okay, and that's basically it. Okay, let's continue here. We're missing here a closing object and such. Okay. All right, so let's create the form itself. We want to create a form in a div. Let's create a form with onSubmit, and soon we'll create a function to handle the onSubmit. So let's create it for a moment. Const onSubmit. And submit, and what it will do is receive the form and form event HTML form element will add the prevent default and send it to the function we created for the mutate with the first name, last name, email, phone, and position. Okay? Let's create another function here, a simple function. We'll call it isError. In case we have any error, we will receive an error. Okay? Unknown. Okay. And it will be of type error, yes. So, if we have any error, we will want to return that same error, which is a type of error. Okay? So back to the form. We actually have in Bootstrap a class name of form floating. Let's use it. Class name. Class name form loading. Okay. Now we can add the input. So we want it to be of type text. We'll simply use the class name of form control from Bootstrap. The placeholder child first name, the value it will receive will be first name, and on change we want to save what heavy value will be between them. Its value in the first name set essentially will be the target value. We will ensure that all fields are required. Additionally, we will add a label for first name. Okay. If we save and look, this is the first field. As soon as I enter, I can write. Okay. So it takes you a few minutes to duplicate these fields for all the inputs we need. All right, so I added all the fields in the form. Let's continue and proceed with the next steps. We are called a button that says add new user. We want this button to have an attribute of type submit. Additionally, as we move forward, we will use boot up to the next phase. For styling, we will use btn success, make it large. We actually want, when we click the button and it adds the user, for the button to be in a disabled state. So thanks to React Query, we have what is called loading. Okay. So basically, when it loads the data, we want to condition its disabled state with loading, meaning with all the with loading, the button, so to speak, stops being active. That's regarding the button. And additionally, next to the button, we have the isError that we created earlier. So, and if there's an error, we want to display some error message in the paragraph, like error adding user. And we'll also print the error itself. So that's what we have. This is the form. We have the button. Of course, the design isn't particularly great, but we're certainly not focusing on design. We'll indeed still tidy it up a little bit by adding a style file, form control, and we'll actually add a margin at the bottom. Okay, let's try. Well, add user, okay. At the moment, we shouldn't see anything, but let's check by the database. We see that users have been added. We have a new document with the details we filled in. Okay, so the create function works. Let's display it, so we'll go to the users list component. Okay, we need React. We need to import use. Use a store within the store, then we'll find the user component. For now, let's just display the name. So we'll wrap this in React FC. And we actually want to add a file now, which will essentially link between the state and the service. So we'll create it. Let's create a new folder, call it hook, and there we'll create a file called useFetch. UseFetch, a function, and update user. TypeScript ban. We will need there the use effect, Torah, React. Okay. Use effect, we will need use query, Yossi, Kaviri. From React query, I'll import both functions from the store and additionally the server. So import fetch from, I'll find it in services and now the service is user service that provides us with patch user, and additionally we'll need to include use user store from the store, which is essential for managing user data. Let's create this function, const use patch, and use batch and update users. We want to establish a variable that will actually call data through the React query. Okay, use query will essentially call it users and refer to the fetch users function in order to achieve the desired functionality. In the second week, we'll fix the state. We have set users there, so use user store, use the state set users. Finally, we'll use effect to provide the data when the application loads. So if we have users, I want to set the set users to user. And finally, carefully listen to set user and attentively. Okay? This is essentially the function that connects the state to the server. We talked at the beginning of the video about wanting to update here as we continue reading. So all we need to do here is actually call, use fetch and update user, and another DQ.